Oh, I think I shared my screen. Did that work?
You can see it.
Okay. And then I'm going to try to do the video present. And I'm on the wrong slide, but getting there. Okay. Hi, everybody. I am very grateful to share space with you guys this evening. And we're all on a journey. And this year has been quite the journey for many of us. And for me, it's been a hard one. But I've also found some peace in being engaged in ways that I have been silent many times. And so that's been healing. And I think as we all engage in work, especially in the healthcare spectrum of providing care and working, we're often made to believe that there's just one or two or three ways to do things. And what we fail to acknowledge and accept is that there's so many different ways to move forward. There's so many ways to live life. There's so many ways to heal. And so I just hope to share a little bit of what I've been doing this year and how that's been healing for me, and inviting you guys to engage in any way you'd like to, whether it be communicating with me or engaging in any of this kind of work on your own level. The more we can move in solidarity, in unison, decolonization is possible. So this is me and my daughter here pictured. And in 2014, I graduated from USF's nursing program here in San Francisco. And I got the Dean's Medal. And so they did this photo shoot and quoted me. And this is my quote when they asked what was my biggest accomplishment. And I said, I have raised a human. This to me is one unquantifiable accomplishment. She is a walking reflection of my love. And I think this is a beautiful shot of one of the most healing things for me, which has been parenthood. I had Dejanay when I was 17 years old, and I lived in a shelter. And I wanted to make sure her life was different. Up until that moment, I found life to be pretty hard. And so then my path began. I went back to high school. I went to a junior college. I got a few associate degrees, and then I transferred on to nursing school. And then here we are the week I was graduating. So I love this picture. Looking at it produces a lot of oxytocin within me. So I love to share it. A little bit more about myself. I'm Black and Latinx. My father's from Asmara in Eritrea. My mom's from Mexico City. And that's my background. I currently live in San Francisco. I was born and raised in Santa Cruz, California. My child is now 13 years old, loves basketball, loves dancing, loves cracking jokes, and we share a lot of laughs. And I'm an alumni at USF and UCSF School of Midwifery, and currently faculty for the School of Medicine at the General, or at UCSF, and was practicing at the General. Okay. And so here is a picture of me with the cohort I attended midwifery school with. We graduated in 2017, and this is a blessing of the hands, a ritual in nursing and midwifery, kind of like moving on to then catch babies. during the 2-year span of our coursework and going into my schoolwork, I was the only person who identified as a person of color. And I love each of these individuals immensely. We went through a lot and did really awesome advocacy work within our program. But it was lonely. It was a lonely and rough 2 years, in the sense that there was many experiences that I held within myself, and I understood about the profession of midwifery that I couldn't share with anybody. I couldn't relate to many weekend activities or items that common individuals found joy in. It was hard, as we shared very little outside of this dedication to midwifery, and I felt like our backgrounds that led us to midwifery were also very different. So it was a beautiful space to share, but at the same time, I felt that things could have been different. For example, there is nothing special about me as an individual where I am the only person of color in my cohort. There is plenty of other qualified candidates. I know of plenty who applied and were denied. And so there's a shame that comes with being a poster child, personally. And I call for individuals that sit in different leadership positions. And when we allow there to be an only, I call shame on you too. It's not acceptable. It's not fair. It's a very personal level. It's not fair to me, but it's not fair to the cohort in itself. There's so much missing. Perspective, experience, creativity. And then all of those communities that each of the individuals in graduating classes are each of the individuals that they go on and provide care for, learn from. That's harmful too. And so as I navigated midwifery school, it was challenging for me to learn and grow, understanding the privilege that comes with me paying an institution, which then allows me to practice on my very teachers. And yet I don't see the benefits going out to those individuals. And so that was a painful journey. And unfortunately, the program, one of the best in the nation, is currently not in a place where we can have conversations around that. We just go out there, we practice on people, we learn, we grow, and we become really good at what we do. But yet we go home, and for me, it was hard. I'd cry. I felt bad. It was painful. And so when we talk about healing, for me, the moment I was given permission by this institution to provide care, by the overseeing folks that deem themselves worthy enough to say who can and can't be a midwife, in a country that was stolen and built by Black people who were enslaved, who were robbed and brought here, and then had beautiful Black queens built this country by catching babies. But here we are, and there are these governing bodies that tell us who can and can't be a midwife today. And so when I was finally given that permission, everything within me just felt like I finally had a place where I could do something different. I could give back. I could do the work that is needed so that we don't have such great disconnect between the healing deemed institutions and those who we are deemed to heal, but actually could heal us so much more if we just built those communication networks and community. I kind of went on a little tangent there, but I feel like that is part of me right now.
Asmata, before you move on, thank you so much for sharing. Just wanted to ask if it's possible if you can click the live caption portion, just so that folks can also follow along.
Is that now working?
Yes, it is. Thank you so much.
Yes. So right when I graduated, I really felt committed to changing the disparity in the numbers of who's going into midwifery institutions. So a little bit of background on this. People of color make up less than 10% of midwifery in the United States. And for Black midwives, that's less than 2%. And yeah, I'll go into a little bit more a little bit later, but it was really important to me to not sit around and allow anyone else to experience what I experienced through the program. And so I felt really inspired to do something about it. And so in 2008, I founded BIPOC Aspiring Midwives, which is a pilot program that supports individuals on their journey to midwifery. It's supposed to be a 3-arm program, shadowing, mentorship, and community building. I was really fortunate this year. I was named the first midwife who received the Watson Scholarship, which is a 3-year financial grant that will support my administrative time to expand the program. Ideally, I see this expanding through California and then nationally to allow people, regardless of where they are on their journey, who are inspired to learn and move through the midwifery hoops, to have support and have community. And that is Black, Indigenous, and people of color. This country has a midwifery platform set up for the white person. They have every pipeline created in the midwifery programs to the communities around them. And so this is my step forward in trying to create some at least pipeline through the educational program. And I hope in community, as we all engage in the work that we do, we can create pipelines and a whole system, a whole country that supports for Black, Indigenous, and people of color to thrive. But this is my little sector of it, or trying to. A key aspect of expansion is partnership. And so I'm honored to partner with the UCSF midwifery program to create a BIPOC, BIPOC mentoring program for the current students in the program. Because of COVID, the program has changed a bit, and really the only thing happening now is the community building, where I host Zoom meetings, and then the mentorship for applications. This is the program that was just started this year at UCSF, which is a mentorship and belonging program for BIPOC students. This is Kim Dow and Lottie, which have been instrumental in starting the program. The program was started because of initial funds to fund administrative work, and something that we've grown to understand, and I see it urgent to demand, is that administrative funds is not enough. We can't call to our very few BIPOC midwives to be mentors and support students on volunteering. That is unacceptable. And so we're working together to find ways and to advocate for more funding so that each mentor is paid and compensated for their time and energy, which is parallel to the program that I started, and that's how we're working together. and looking for financial resources and advocating for that support. Let me pause this here. So shortly after George Floyd was murdered, a lot of attention came to Black lives. It's a hard one because it was a lot of public attention, right? And what was really hard for me personally was seeing at the highest extent that I've ever seen it in my life, where people are hyper aware of the value of Black life, or so the posters say on the windows, right? That the national organization that is for midwives, ACNM, had not moved in a direction to explicitly share their values around Black lives, their commitment to Black lives. And because of the history in this country around midwifery, and because greater than 90% of midwives in this country are white, it was really hard to swallow that I was entering such a profession that at the highest time of awareness to the Black human in this country, those who catch the majority of Black and brown babies could not rise. And so I made this video, so I'll just share it now. Oops, maybe not. My name is Ismaya Gabre.
Hi, Asmara. I think you muted the audio completely. Sorry.
Thank you.
In the United States, Black humans have maternal mortality rates 3 to 12 times higher than that of white people. Black lives matter. In the United States, the Black maternal mortality health crisis is active genocide of Black people. Black lives matter. In the year 2020, the midwifery profession in our country is composed of greater than 90% white people and less than 2% Black people. Black lives matter. Yesterday, on June 2nd, was Blackout Tuesday, a day where non-Black people can demonstrate their solidarity through action. Because Black lives matter. To date, as of yesterday, the national organization representing midwives, the American College of Nurse Midwives, had not taken action to demonstrate that Black lives matter. This prompted my decision to allow my membership to lapse. I was considering renewing it to join the virtual national conference that happened this past weekend. But due to your continued silence, ACNM, I did not do either. Your silence was a red flag. I cannot trust this organization to stand in solidarity. Black lives matter. Yesterday, at 0000 Eastern Time, I named 3 actions ACNM needed to take within 24 hours, or else I would not renew my membership. All 3 actions did not take place. They were: 1, make a public announcement that Black Lives Matter. 2, make public the organization's actions to demonstrate that Black Lives Matter. 3, make a public call to the greater than 90% midwifery workforce in the United States. Let's be clear, ACNM. I was only asking for 3 crystal clear actions in the sea of thousands of potential actions that are necessary to enact now to counteract the act of genocide happening in this country. Black Lives Matter. It is now June 3rd. More than 24 hours have passed. ACNM, you failed to take the 3 actions being asked. This saddens me greatly. But it's not surprising. Your failed actions communicate you do not value my membership, and you do not stand in solidarity through action to the Black Lives Matter movement. Black Lives Matter. As promised, I will not renew my membership, given your failure to act. Instead, I will place $365 in the hands of another Black midwife today. I expect all who name solidarity to do the same. California midwives and beyond. Midwives who stand in solidarity with Black Lives Matter, this is a call to action. Please do not pay ACNM dues, and instead put your money this year directly in the hands of Black midwives.
So that went on some more. I think it's a whole 7 minutes. But that was, for me, healing. It's really hard operating in white spaces all the time. And the comfort is so toxic. The comfort around, that's one little example, the profession, but the comfort around and the normalcy, I guess is the right way to use that term, around inaction. Just, well, what could we expect from them? And everything within me just like, because it's not okay. We should not have a national organization that can't rise to that. They've been in place for how many years and decades, and you have yet to figure out how to just move in solidarity. You've been organized to reel in the money. You can't organize to stand in solidarity. And so for me, that was really healing to do that. And what followed was pretty healing too. I've been able to pay over 155 Black student midwives $200 each through Venmo transfers because of the money going in. It's all been like crowdsourcing through social media and an abundance of post sharings, and it's been beautiful. I've connected with so many people, and it's a no strings or questions asked fund, but yet still people are beautiful and just share what they use the money for, and it's many of the reasons I can relate to. I remember many times in my life just wishing someone would just, if I could just have this much money, I could go to this next step, and it's been pretty healing to learn about those who are on their journey to become midwives, who are Black and are proud, being able to support a little along their journey and learn about where they're at. during COVID, a lot shifted at work for me. So I work at San Francisco General Hospital, and I work in a practice of midwives alongside doctors, and we care for community people at our only sanctuary hospital. And for the last year, I was working really hard to create Black-centered space in clinic. So for example, I would do a continuity clinic every Friday for pregnant families. And I was really working to center Black families who are interested in Black-led care, and working with a team of Black identified folks. And so when COVID hit, my practice had to make many changes, and like many across the nation. And one of the decisions made was that I would be removed from clinic and working nights every other night for 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And that crushed me. I immediately thought about all these families that had expressed fear around care, that had expressed fear around death, and not been given any wiggle room to close that or to transition, just having to switch gears. And so it was hard. It was really, really hard. And for the days after I'd work my night shift, I started calling families, and we had at the time a total of like about 50 Black families who were pregnant that we cared for. And during COVID, there was also a pantry that was started at the clinic in the hospital for all patients. And so I wanted to check in with each patient and see how they had access services. And I started calling them. So again, we have less than 50 pregnant families. And I got through calling 14 of them who had not learned or heard about the pantry and who were interested in the services. And so that was really hard for many reasons, but through anger and through challenging times, I feel like the silver lining is we rise, right? And so that's what gave birth to One Love Black Mamas. I quickly organized and connected with colleagues who shared interest in centering Black families and community leaders. We're a group of about over 25 folks now. And since April 25th, we've been going out into community weekly, giving out cash handouts, no questions asked, again, crowdsourcing through social media. And we've been able to partner with and collaborate with community folks. We've now served well over 120 mamas probably now. And it's been beautiful. It's not only been a beautiful thing to provide families. Like the biggest for me is just like that oxytocin rush. We sit here and talk about mortality all the time, and what is it, what causes it, and I'm so done with those conversations. Yes, they need to happen for those who are uneducated and have failed to notice us. But I want to know, like I want to engage in the work of like thriving and living and being happy and joy, like creating joyous moments where we can counteract the racism that's embedded all throughout and drenched in blood in this country. And so this has been it. On Mondays, we go out every week. There's a group of us, usually ranging from like 3 to 7 folks. And we show up at people's house through community word. We take referrals from Black leaders, Black individuals, and go out and meet mamas and give them cash, no questions asked, and give them food. And then we get to engage in community space. We get to heal together, share tears, share laughs. And up until this point, through all of my academic years, and working, this is the first time I get to engage in a solid 6 hours of Black healing space. As I want to say as a working adult, you know, because as we've been trained in this country to dive into work, for a lot of us who identify as people of color, we're often in silos. So this has been a really beautiful healing space. This is me and Cassandra Perkins. That was the first day she was able to join me. She's born and raised in Hunters Point. She calls it Happy People's Town. And below is Shanita, also born and raised in Hunters Point. And we've just continued to head out. They to me are leaders on so many levels. There's not a place we go and there's not someone that knows them. And this is some more pictures of us. And so we show up for mamas who access reproductive health services in San Francisco. That includes abortion care, that includes just a pap smear, that includes pregnancy care. We don't care about who provides care for them. If they're happy with their providers, we're cheering them on. If they're not, we talk about what that's like, and we give them some resources about other services in the city or around. But we just want to make sure folks are feeling good, feeling seen, feeling heard. That's a lot of what happens when we stop at these places. We listen. We listen in ways that our regular jobs don't allow us to. This is one partnership that's evolved, which has been beautiful. It's called Nourish One Love with Mothers to Mothers Postpartum. They have crowdsourced as well, and they've raised funds to nourish community members through partnerships with restaurants that identify as Black or Indigenous and Pacific Islanders. And so they create beautiful meals that are postpartum centered and have healing components through nutrition that we then go and hand off to mamas who just delivered. Usually within 6 weeks of pregnancy. We have now done 2 mamas. We're moving on to our 3rd. And it's becoming more organized, and we're looking forward to the continued growth in this partnership. Also, the Village Project of San Francisco is run by Miss Adrian, who's the most powerful, just beautiful soul, just a powerhouse. I'm learning so much, and I have yet to learn so much. And she does a lot of community work with youth. And during COVID, rose to the occasion and started serving community through creating a food bank. And so they supply us with resources, including grocery bags that are balanced to fit the needs of the postpartum mamas. That's not postpartum, all mamas. And then the Children's Book Club has been amazing. They just recently reached their 27,000 donation of books. We've had the privilege of working with them and being able to hand out books that are either written by or have visual representation of people of color. And it's so fun to grab the boxes of books and put them out. And we just go into different neighborhoods and just open the trunk and put the boxes out. And youth to older adults, like just the array of people who'll come up, and I'll be like, we'll just ask them, do you have a niece or nephew, or do you know a little kid in your neighborhood? And they're like, yeah, I can bring this back to them. And the kids too, absolutely love them. So it's been quite just a beautiful thing to be able to distribute books. I didn't read my first complete book until I went back to high school. And so I think about my family and what immigration means and what the American dream means and being a US citizen. I know I'm not the only one to not access or have access to education in the way the highest privileged white child does. And so this to me means a lot, at least the book component, another pivot point of healing. So this is us in a picture here. And then there's some information if you guys want to take a little screenshot on how to be supportive and follow us on social media. So that happened, and then my strike started. For those that don't know, on July 8th, I was leaving work and I witnessed 6 sheriffs harassing a Black person to leave campus. And given the amount of violence forever since the creation of police, who were called police, but they really are, they were created to chase and kill and bring back beautiful Black humans that were trying to access a sense of freedom. They were created to go grab them, kill them, beat them, bring them back into horrific conditions. That's police in America. And so throughout my life, I've had encounters with police. And yet we've all been systemically trained to think that this is the only way. And so here I was on July 8th, walking out of work and seeing them harassing this individual. And because of who I am and my upbringing and all of those things and the current climate, like there was no way I could walk away. And so they tried to tell me to leave and I wouldn't leave. And I asked for their badge numbers. To this date, I have no idea who those 6 sheriffs are, but I promise you they all know who I am. And I don't get to hide behind no shields. I don't get to hide behind a union. I don't have that kind of protection. Nor do I have a posse of racist and decent police that will protect me. And I, after experiencing that, and they laughed in my face, and thankfully a colleague came out and was being supportive, but I even just riding my bike home and riding past all of them, I couldn't. And so I sat there and wrote this letter. And I'm sick of racism. And so since July 8th, I haven't gone back to work. I'm now forced to be on family leave. I'm going to be given 12 weeks worth of hours, and then we'll see how it goes. I am grateful to have support. Huge shout out to the Black faculty at UCSF who've gone above and beyond around reaching out to me and utilizing their systems of power that they've been able to slowly gain voice and support me. And for the rest who have joined in solidarity to get creative around how we're going to make this happen. Because I will not go back until every single sheriff is out. And if that means I don't go back, then that means I don't go back. So yeah, I think I said that part. I'm sick of the racism. And I hope all of you guys are too. Huge also shout out to DPH Must Divest as a coalition that was formed back in July. Maisha Davis is a physician who has been strongly advocating for the removal of the sheriffs. And I must add, for years it's been going on. So my strike is one little like part of it, but it wasn't what initiated this work that's been trying, that many people have invested time and energy. And I have to also mention the community in San Francisco, from just like there's so many names, but just like Mario Woods, Derek Gaines, and countless others actually have been killed in the city, murdered by police, and have been advocating and going above and beyond within the system in place for them to speak, outside of the system in place for them to speak, and still this year, our mayor signed on to continue to finance this racist, murderous system, and even give them a raise next year. So it's pretty sad. But through all of that engagement, I've met some amazing community leaders and healers, and I am so awakened in ways I had yet to understand I could be, just from the sense of validity. When you're constantly speaking to folks who are so trained within systems to that can't even get to understand what it means, what violence really means for some of us, it becomes hard and isolating. But through this shift and heading out into community, I've been able to understand that I'm not alone. And I've been so motivated and inspired by those leaders who have been doing this for years and still show up. And I look forward to aging in a way where that can be part of my story too. And so I created this shirt through a partnership with China Tolliver. She's a t-shirt queen, I guess you can rightfully say. And she co-designs things. And so we designed this shirt, and it's on my Instagram, and currently going through a platform. I hope to move to my website, which should be launching soon. But it's Defend Us, Defund Them, and 100% of the profit goes to Black student midwives. So it all goes to that same fund. And that's been awesome. I took a pledge. I encourage you all to take a pledge too and learn some more. Aside from visiting the Department of Public Health, DPH Must Divest website, which is great, and has clear action items and ways to engage as a community member or a healthcare provider. This URL will take you through a pledge and then allow you to access ways to become involved and engaged. And on a national level, we're hoping to create some action-oriented resources to be able to share how to move in solidarity through action versus just thoughts and writing and thinking about this. We can be action-oriented. This is a rally that DPH Must Divest put on. That was beautiful. And I put this on here because I've been so moved by the learners on so many levels from so many institutions, but a huge shout out to resident doctors. I often work with them in clinical spaces, and the way they rose to utilize their power and voice at a time when I felt so lonely institutionally, it brought me a tear so many days. And that's residents across the board, and students, nursing students, midwifery students, just goodness. I'm really excited for the future, and having you guys be in the spaces where you actually have the power and the money to start making some changes in our healthcare system. And I look forward to seeing it. This is Arinma and Ade speaking about the unsafe conditions of having police in hospital spaces, given that there's just less than 1% of hospitals in the United States utilize police as their primary security, letting us know just by virtue of action that it is not necessary and there are better ways, and it's actually harmful. They wrote an opinion piece in the Examiner. And on September 8th was my 2-month, I should probably charge my laptop, my 2-month sick strike. And no sheriff has been removed. I have not been provided any kind of formal apology outside of the people I directly work with. and that's that. So my strike is not effective in the sense that it hasn't got the sheriffs removed, not even one. And I'm still the only midwife on strike, but I'm unwavering. And though it hasn't succeeded to do those things, there's been a lot of other successes that have taken place, which is healing, community engagement. And this motivated me to announce on September 8th that I want to open up my own birth center practice in San Francisco with Black-led care. And so if the sheriffs don't leave the general, that's okay. We're going to create a safe space where we're not policing people. We're allowing them to heal and have babies and thrive in spaces that see them, respect them. And I see Monique on the line here, and I can't wait to hear what she will share, because she's been doing this work and healing, creating Black, beautiful healing spaces. So we just need more of them, right? And so that's the silver lining around all this for me. This is my little Instagram post. It's been really funny through this whole strike and situation. I've become active on social media in ways I was never. So I've learned a few things, and I'll just close with this little note I posted on my social media a few weeks back, I think. Dear white people in midwifery and obstetrics. Sorry, the little signs in the way. Please stop taking up space in work meetings. One example of this is when you take up workspace, paid time, to center your tears and talk about how Trump uses his power in evil ways that causes harm. In these moments, two things happen within me. My mind ventures to places of curiosity. I wonder if this person reflects about the harm their individual power in this space has caused, and the countless shed tears by Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities as a direct result of this harm. And if they do they do so with this amount of emotional and resource investment? Two, my blood boils as Black, Indigenous, and people of color continue to die daily because the decisions leaders in our profession are making or not making. Please stop. This too is violence. With love, respect, and humility, Asmara. And so I'm not sure how to open up the question part, or if I just say open to questions, but we're here.
Hi, everyone. This is Hannah again. Thank you so much, Asmara. That was an amazing talk. I know everybody's probably really excited to ask questions. So if you guys have any questions or anything else you want to tell Asmara, please put it in the chat box and I will communicate it to her. We're probably only going to have time for about 2 questions. So go ahead and type them in the box, please.
And I'm sorry, you guys, I wasn't reading the comments to understand that time was going. But you guys can always reach out to me. Social media DM is the easiest way to contact me. And you can ask your questions there.
Hi, Asmara. Sorry, I don't know if I scared you.
Yeah.
My name is Salma. Thank you so much for your presentation. I really felt touched by it. I felt it viscerally. And I just want to say that I'm here with you, and thank you for giving us your time. I also wanted to say that I witnessed my cousin giving birth about a year ago, and I think ever since that moment, I've realized the extent to which the discrimination that she faced during her birthing experience. And it's been incredibly traumatizing to think about the complete lack of empathy that she was given, and how she was completely disregarded in a time when she needed the most amount of care. I'm Black, by the way. So it was very disheartening, and it was really traumatizing. I'm not sure if you know the answer to this, but as a way for Black women to educate themselves and to be there for themselves in the case that they don't have a midwife that is Black or a person of color to look out for them, what type of resources or like websites, social media accounts can you shout out so that they have some sort of resource?
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I think that is too often a common thread in the experience of Black birthing people and people of color in this country. And I think the more we can be present and supporting each other and listening. So, for example, when our friend comes back with a situation or an experience, if we listen at the very least on a personal level, because 9 out of 10 they weren't listened to through that experience, and we all deserve to be heard. And then regarding resources, there's so many. I could definitely just share some off the top of my head right now, but I'd love to share more if you're interested. Most importantly, I think about a team. So having like a birthing team, including doula support if accessible, because that's advocacy support in the moments of birth. But there's the Birth Rights, which is a beautiful document that gives gives access to what are our rights as citizens and what we should and should what we should not be tolerating in these institutions. And then there's Black Midwifery Alliance that has resources on their website, the Birth Equity. I'm not going to think of the last part of that name, but they have like the Black Birth Bill of Rights, which is beautiful, and other resources. If anyone else wants to type some in, I wasn't thinking about them off the top of my head. But there's a lot of them, so I can provide those directly. And maybe I can do a whole little thing on my Instagram where I can just start posting ones every day. So in a week we'll have them.
Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, we're gonna close up on the Q&A session, and I'm taking a little bit of a 5-minute break, and we're gonna come back with a community panel at 6:18. So see you guys back here in about 5 minutes. Thank you again, Asmara. That was amazing. Thank you so much.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Hope that you all were able to take care of your needs at that short break. So now we're going to transition into the second part of our evening for this conference tonight, which is going to be the UCSF and community panel discussion. So my name is Melissa Bautista, she, her pronouns. I am the Assistant Director for the Multicultural Resource Center, part of the Office of Diversity. I just want to say welcome to you all and thank you for showing up tonight to be in this virtual realm and community. So we're going to go ahead and continue on with the storytelling. I don't know about you all, but I already feel my heart already warm, right? And I'm already allowing the healing to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and just move on to introductions. And just really wanted to start off to ground ourselves in the purpose of this panel, right? We really wanted to bring voices and people to really share about their experiences in the work that they do, but also on how they bring social justice and advocacy into their work. So I'm very, very excited and deeply honored and grateful to be able to introduce these moderators and panelists who are going to be guiding us for these next few minutes that we're going to have together. So I'm going to start off by introducing our two panelists. Our first panelist is Nathan Koss, who is a second-year medical student at UCSF, who's passionate about incorporating social justice into his clinical work. Our second moderator for tonight is Amanda Egloff, who is a retired Navy nurse, first generation PhD candidate in the School of Nursing, who studies how nurses work with medication safety technologies. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first panelist, who's going to be Monique Lassar, who is a proud San Francisco resident and prides herself on her community work, known as Dr. Mo in the community. Dr. Lassar is an executive director of the Rafiki Coalition, an agency that focuses on reducing health disparities and increasing wellness in San Francisco's Black community. She has over 20 plus years of higher education, clinical and nonprofit experience, and believes that in order to create individual and community healing, it is most effective to work on multiple levels of the system, beginning with individuals, families and groups, and on academic, training, research, advocacy, and policy levels. Thank you so much, Monique, for being here. Welcome. Our second panelist is Rupa Maria, who is an associate professor of medicine at the University of California, San Francisco, in the Division of Hospital Medicine, where she works with a focus on social medicine. She is a co-founder of the Do No Harm Coalition, a group of healthcare workers committed to changing social structures that make health impossible for different groups of people. Through her work with the coalition, she has worked on the health impacts of police violence specifically, and the health legacies of colonialism globally. She is currently finishing writing a book on these matters with writer and political economist Raj Patel called Inflamed, Deep Medicine and the Anatomy of Injustice. Thank you so much, Rupa, for being here. Our third panelist is Tiny Garcia, formerly houseless, incarcerated poverty scholar, poet, author of Criminal of Poverty, Growing Up Homeless in America, and co-author of How to Not Call Police Ever. Co-founder of Poor Magazine, Homefulness, a homeless people's solution to homelessness, People School, and Decolonize Academy, a liberation school for houseless, disabled youth and adults. Thank you so much, Tiny, for being here. Welcome. And our fourth and final panelist is Patricia Barraza. Born and raised in SF Mission and Excelsior District, founded the collective of COVID response supports with neighbors and nonprofits looking to support families in District 11. Mission Housing, YMCA, Excelsior Works, IFR in Jamestown, who serves Excelsior families. Patricia also serves as the Beacon Director for Urban Services, YMCA at James Denman Middle School. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass the invisible baton and mic to our wonderful and fierce moderators, Nathan and Amanda, go ahead and take us away.
Awesome. Thank you so much for those wonderful introductions, Melissa. We'll go ahead and get started with some questions, and feel free to jump in, whoever would like to answer the questions, and we'll go from there. And thank you all again for joining us. So the first question that I want to ask is, where does the inspiration for your work come from?
Honey, I thought you were unmuting, so I was gonna be like, go ahead, Patty.
You know what's going on. I can definitely answer that. I think that for me, a lot of it comes from growing up in a space where my parents didn't speak any English, and knowing that I was the translator for my family from the time I was 5 years old. I remember having to enroll all of my siblings, including myself, into SFUSD, and then also having to go to doctor's appointments and translate for some very difficult things. So now I think in my 40 something years, I always go back to my mom. I always go back to my family. I always go back to, I don't want a young person, a child, to have those conversations and be in those spaces, and that my superpower of knowing Spanish and English and seeing how hard some of these conversations are, especially through COVID, having to have discussions about losing your job and about paying your rent, or not being able to go back to work because you've tested positive, and then kind of seeing how much is needed to give information, to be an advocate, and then just kind of sitting in that space of what I went through as a child and seeing other young people, and hoping that they can have a childhood but still have that superpower of speaking Spanish, and being able to navigate that for them and support them in that. And I think in this particular work with the people that we've had to support, that's been my biggest space where I kind of run to, is for those monolingual Spanish speaking families that are just really scared and just don't know what's going on or how to navigate the system, and then just kind of jumping in and just being an advocate in a language, in that language capacity. Your turn, Monique.
Patricia, no, but I will. So I'm gonna, first of all, just thank everyone, honor, acknowledge Ohlone land that we're on, that we're on in San Francisco, and say thank you to Asmara for being so vulnerable and for literally putting her life and her life work on the line. And she has a daughter. I think she talked about that, but to be a model like that of bravery, that's what inspires me. I saw my mom, as a single mom, get up every day, and no matter what was going on and what kind of trauma she was dealing with, an addiction and mental health issues, she got up and she went to work and she did it. And she did that all the way till she got us through school. And then it was kind of done for her. But she did it, right? That was the strength that it took. And so I think, I look back, I get strength from my ancestors. I get strength from my family, who really put the community and health and healing in the front. But I also really get inspiration from what I don't want other people to have to go through. I grew up, by the time I was 16, I moved 18 times, and that was just a lot. So my superpower, Patricia, became, being able to, morph, into any environment, right? To be around any people. But at the same time, that costs, right? And so even when COVID hit, I was paralyzed at first because I had often had that experience of, my whole life being taken. My mom would be like, "Oh, we're moving," no chance, no nothing, no way to say no, right? And when COVID happened, I couldn't say no. And so I guess with the work, I was really grateful for the Human Rights Commission and Director Cheryl Davis, who kind of created a hub. And I was able to plug in and get going for the work. And then I remembered, oh, my trauma doesn't have to be from the paralysis. I can work from the place of love. I can work from the place of power, and I can work from the place of all the privileges that I have now. I've got a roof over my head. I've got, 2 screens in front of me. I am privileged. I have an education. I have so much power, and I'm not gonna not use it for my people and for all of us. So that's what gives me inspiration, because now I have privilege, and so now I view it as my my duty to, and my love to give.
Nice. That's really powerful. Thank you so much, Monique, for sharing that with us. I would like to kind of shift gears for a moment and ask a question to someone who may not have answered the question, because this is for healing, for activism, for healthcare science professionals. How do you think what do you panelists think we can do the work that we do and sustain ourselves? How do we prevent burnout? Thank you.
Tony, is it okay if I take this one?
Go for it.
I love to see of your face. Beautiful friend. Thank you so much for having us here. I'm honored to be here on this group and for this purpose with so many people who I look up to in the community who serve as role models to me. So burnout. For myself, and I can only share for myself, when you say what inspires me, it's the same thing that prevents me from being burnt out, which is my ancestors and the ancestors of this land, and really connecting emotionally, spiritually, physically to their presence. For me, what that looks like is prayer. What we culture is called puja. It's an offering. I do a full moon offering with my family, with my children every month. I do prayers every morning to connect myself to the earth and to feel really grounded. And I write music. So for myself, I've always seen service and just love. When I think Monique said that, just my love, my pure love, my Bob Marley style love for humanity and for the earth and for all beings is what really motivates and drives me. And in that, practice real deep self-love. And so that means I've never worked more than, I think, 67% FTE as a physician. So I've always been on faculty at somewhere between ish and 70-ish%. And the rest of the time before I had children, I wrote music, and I was situated in the community, making friends in the community, playing in the streets of the community, working with different people who became my really dear friends. And that those friendships, and I can't emphasize this, that actually loving the people that you are serving and being a part of, breaking bread with people, getting to know people, showing up as you can, and taking care of yourself. I think that these are all ways that I prevent burnout. I also don't measure myself to anyone else's standards. I measure myself to my grandmother's standards, and she had pretty high standards. And so that's like, I'm never going to be the department chair of medicine. I don't care. I would love to start a medical school to decolonize medicine. Like that's what I would love to do. So I think really finding your passion, grounding yourself with the people that you're serving as a friend, a comrade, and a company them and in the struggle, because their liberation is your liberation. We're all suffering under the system. And you can't really get one without the other. So I really think that finding that strength is really important.
Hey, family. Yeah, I just want to shout out to all the mamas, to all the daughters, and thanks for Monique and Patricia for being such fierce daughters. And
Dr. Rupa, for being fierce mama and daughter. But to all our mamas who aren't here on this digital street, you know, who sometimes they call it resilience, right? But I just call it keep it moving. Monique, you were speaking my mama's story and me, you know, and it was really deep when you opened up with the original moderator with that question about inspires, because, you know, I don't know if the word is inspires or forces, you know. What inspires me is the abuse of my brothers and sisters still on these stolen streets every day in America, KKK. Things like encampment policies that is being instituted in Oakland right now, which is literally just should be called removal policies. The violence called sweeps against our houseless bodies that continues to happen in a pandemic, because we know the pandemic called poverty has been around a lot longer than the COVID-19 and the pandemic called polarized terror. And, you know, and it's a trip, because that's where me and my mom were from my childhood, from 11 to 18 and beyond. When, you know, people would say, oh, you could be okay if you left your mama. Really? Well, what would happen to her? You know, and so we're taught a lot of lies in capitalism. We're taught a lot of lies even about, you know, the so-called solutions, and even healing itself is problematic to me in ways that it sometimes undergirds what I call the separation nation. It doesn't include our mamas, you know, and I appreciate, Rupa, you for talking about how you're not trying to reach this fake live success, you know, that what you know is important is what's important, and centering familia and also ancestors, and to know deeply that, you know, for those of us daughters who come from mama in struggle, that's why we wake up every day. And, you know, and this idea of burnout is a hard one for me. I don't know, you know, if I'm doing that, if I'm not doing that. I think burnout is a privileged notion, though. I got to be real. You know, I've been working since I'm 4 years old, and that was a street hustle because that's what was our reality. And, you know, I don't know about this idea about, oh, you know, now I'm tired. Well, I mean, I feel like that's also a position that is very much embedded again in the lie of success. And I'm working on figuring out how to take care of my physical body, because no, I have not been in a position to do that. The way that we do what we're doing, which is to unsell Mama Earth, because Mama Earth should not be bought and sold and pimped and played, or we would end homelessness tomorrow. And so homefulness is about spiritually and legally taking Mama Earth off the commodities market. But that's extremely hard to do when you're poor people with no resources. And so, you know, one of the things I say is I work really hard. And I don't know if I'll stop doing that. So thank you for the beautiful questions and the fierce panel.
Thank you so much for those words. They're so powerful, and, you know, I think ring true for so many folks here who are joining us. And in regards to, you know, just the way some of these things are viewed, that we all sort of support, like in regards to like human rights and like healthcare. And I know you talked about like encampments and things along those lines. How do we sort of reach out and educate others and prevent it from becoming like divisive dialogue? You know, I understand sometimes it does turn into that, but how do we sort of engage folks and let them know about these like things that are going on, you know, in the work that each of you do?
Hey, Nathan. Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask, could you clarify the question just a little bit? It kind of feels like I'm not quite sure. I'm like, I want, like, what are you really saying? Like, what's the real?
You not piss people off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
you're gonna
That sounds
piss
like
people
the
off. I feel like what we're talking about, I think what you're trying to get at, Nathan, is that like, how do you talk about, like, when I'm in the hospital and I'm witnessing racism recreate violence in the clinical encounter as I'm watching, as I'm sitting there, what do I do? Am I going to piss someone off if I say something? Absolutely. Is their discomfort more important than the discomfort of that person who's suffering the impact of racism in that moment? No, it's not. And so it's understanding the hierarchies of violences that have been created by our society to maintain the hierarchies that are there, that are replayed every moment in every hospital room at UCSF and every clinical encounter that you see. Those structures and hierarchies of violences are there. And we need to get conversant and understand the relationship of history and power, how those two things are playing on the bodies of our patients. And if you start treating that symptomology, then you're going to be upsetting lots of people, because that symptomology is created by an entire system that makes the hierarchies that exist in our medical institution, that make the hierarchies that exist throughout Western medicine. Western medicine is a tool of that same system. The prisons, the hospitals, the schools are all tools of that system. So when you start to identify and speak about it, you will make people upset. And it's not your intention to make people upset. I don't think of myself as a malicious, horrible person, or yourself, but it's to relieve the suffering of the people that you're witnessing. And the thing about being a physician or a healthcare practitioner is that you have a privilege to witness. You're seeing the body suffer. And if you, once you know why it's suffering, if you don't speak up and you don't engage, then you are a complicit part of that violence. And that's something that needs to be really deeply felt and understood. Because I just can't say that enough. So I don't think there's a way around it. I think there's a way through it. And that's what we have to do, is we have to go through it.
Yeah, I hella agree with Rupa. I think that one of the reasons this really started was because our families were not engaging with the DPH contact tracer like system. They were, as we were meeting them, families were saying, no one's ever called me. I didn't get any services. I don't know what you're talking about. And then going back and realizing that it was a language issue or a community fear issue. And I think that, everyone on this call, everyone that is studying to be a doctor, a nurse, a midwife, I think that, what I really got out of Asmara's, out of your talk was that, you guys are in community, you're enjoying the time with the people. And then from there, you're figuring out what the needs are. And once you figure out what the needs are, then you start hustling. Then you start trying to figure out, how can I get this mama, how can I get this family what they need? And how can I be that vessel for them? Because they don't trust anybody. And I think that's one of the biggest tools that can be taken for anyone that has the privilege to, have these like higher level decision-making jobs, or, being a doctor and a nurse. And many, when I was a kid, I said, I want to grow up to be a veterinarian, but the tools and the money and or the pathway was just not there for me. And so I see it not there for so many people, and it has so much to do with access, and it has so much to do with, how can you then show, and how can you then pull people up, and how can you then share your story and share how you got to where you are with, all of our kids and all of our families that deserve to be in those places. But at the core of it, it has to do with trust. And at the core of it, it has to do with community. So how do we walk into community and not expect community to respect us just because we have these MDs behind us or these MFTs behind our names? But how do we really show up and be there for those families and get them to know you and get them to trust you, and then follow through with every single need that you see?
That's really powerful. Thank you so much for that. The next question that I want to ask to the panel is, how do we balance the challenge of, excuse me, building accountability academia with assessing the needs and the values of not only the communities that some of us represent are part of, or the marginalized communities that many of us serve, and with research or inpatient care? How do we balance the challenges of academia and the needs of those marginalized populations?
Oh, I got to take this one. Anti-social workers and case manglers call me crazy, lazy, dumb, and a bum because my knowledge don't come from the institution.
Mm-hmm.
Anthropology, ethnography, psychology, the study about us, without us. So yeah, I'm a poet, as I'm assuming some of you all badasses are. But that comes out of Poverty Scholarship, Poor People Led Theory, Art, Words, and Tears Across Mama Earth, which is a poor people's theory textbook. It came out last year. I would urge everybody at UCSF to get a copy. And I'd also urge you to bring in myself and the Poverty Scholars to do a Poverty Scholarship training, because that's not an answer that you can do in this 3 seconds or 3 minutes we got right now. Again, there are 527 years of lies about poor and indigenous peoples, about Black and brown peoples, about houseless peoples, that you all are taught. You all are taught by default, those of you who actually work in that system. And unpacking those and unlinking your mind from the relationship of, client to doctor or client to practitioner is it's a long process. And I'm blessed to hold some of this knowledge and down to help people. I don't come with hate, but it is actually extremely violent, the relationships between practitioner and client. Rupa, you nailed some of that piece, and that is what happens every day inside of the clinics and examination rooms that you all work in. And it isn't because you're moving with hate. It's because you've been told and loaded up with certain narratives about who us poor people are and the knowledge that we hold. And even as you try to uncolonize, and move differently, and even in this beautiful panel that you all set up, I appreciate it. I do. But it is a conversation, and it's an unlearning and a relearning that takes a while. And I would appreciate and really challenge you all to figure out a way to bring us in there, because I will say that Rupa has tried, and she hit a great white wall of bullshit when she tried to. And I'm sorry I'm calling it out right now, but this may be the last time that I ever get up in this spot. So I'm going to call it out because that's what I do. But I always move with truth and humility, because I don't feel that anyone is moving with malice. As someone had said before, we're moving with the things we've been told and sold, right? So that's the short version.
Tiny, I'm gonna roll right with you and say it really directly. You have to unlearn everything that you learn in a predominantly white space. It's based in white supremacy. It's based in a white ivory tower. And it's not from, and let me get it twisted. It is our duty, any of us who go to these classes and take these classes in a white stream, patriarchal, heterosexist, homophobic, transphobic space. It's our job to do the translation and do our work, just like Tiny said. We have to do that work. And so we have to decolonize our mind and re-indigenize our mind. And also at the same time, what I think we have to realize is that you are trained and taught that you are the expert, that you are the one with the knowledge and the power. And everything that you do is to preserve that system. So, I agree with Tiny on one hand, and then on the other hand, I disagree, because it is actually by, and I think you agree with me too, this is all by plan and design, so, this perpetuates this medical industrial complex. We shouldn't all be on antidepressants and anti-cholesterol and anti-diabetes and blah, 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 right? We should actually have healthy food in District 10. We should have a grocery store. Come on, a full service grocery store. How hard is that?
Yep.
We should have green, healthy spaces that are not polluted by toxic land that we can't even plant on. You know what I'm saying? So this is right up the street from where everybody is, right down on 3rd. And it's like Patricia said, folks are not even getting called from the contact tracing. And yet at the same time, UCSF, and I love my UCSF family for real. They're brilliant and beautiful. And at the same time, and my DPH family, at the same time, they're perpetuating these systems. We have to decolonize the system, break down the system, and recreate it. We can't, what becomes so hard is that we can't use the master's tools to dismantle the master's house, and we have to shift it. And that's really hard, because in the middle of it, we want to do these things for our folks, this healing, right? That's so problematic. But the thing I think we have to remember is that the systems are designed to keep us sick. And so how am I going to do, mental health in a Medi-Cal model where you need a diagnosis?
Mm-hmm.
When racism, anti-Black racism exists not in Black people, in other people, right? That is not, the disease is not in Blackness. The disease is in the others. Yet we're dealing with the symptoms, and yet we're the ones that then have to have a diagnosis and have to have a Medi-Cal record and have to have all this. It's all designed by, you don't get paid unless you have this diagnosis. Do you all feel what I'm saying here? You have to have the diagnosis to get the funding. And you can't just get treatment for just wanting to go and have therapy, and wanting to go and work on your wellness, and wanting to go and decolonize and re-indigenize. That's not what is paid for. Not by the Department of Public Health, not by this US government, and often not even by the funders. Yeah. So we have to deconstruct this whole situation.
We need an ICD-10 code for suffering from white supremacy.
Yes, exactly.
Like new ICD-10 codes, because and this goes back to Tiny's point when she was talking about burnout, that burnout is a privilege. I would call the programming that you're describing, Monique, as burn up. And literally Absolutely. What we see for Black, Indigenous, Brown folks, and COVID has become the glaring example of this, is how poverty, discrimination, and chronic social defeat generates inflammation in the body. And that leads Absolutely. To the whole host of problems that we see, from depression to Alzheimer's to inflammatory bowel disease to asthma, and all of these things are compounded, whether it's the air pollution, the environmental pollution, and then the social pollution from the sicknesses of supremacy that have been established through colonial structure for 600 years, that we have to undo as healers.
Absolutely. Thank you. Sorry, I think I went off, but yeah.
Thank you.
So actually that question, Nathan, just to be clear, you need a new question. That's a colonized question. That is a white supremacist question. We have to re-indigenize the question. Yay. Because there's no such thing as, I think the question was, oh, I can't find it. Where is the question? If you can, anyway, if you look at the question, you're valuing academia over people. It's backwards. It's always backwards when you do that.
Yeah. The question was how to balance the challenges of building accountability in academia with the needs and values of the communities that either we represent, identify from, or serve. So, yeah.
Do you feel me? How that's backwards and twisted?
Yeah. I'm picking up what you're putting down for sure.
Except as we re-indigenize the question, which I absolutely agree, we also have to recognize that that we're still in the colonizer's house, trying to build a new roof. And so then we maybe have to take the damn house, fam. Just saying.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons when we talk about police terror and poverty, we never do not include Mama Earth liberation. So I just want to say that. But anyway.
Thank you so much for those words, and definitely agree that, you know, definitely can't use the tools of, like, you know, that were given to us by the white ivory tower to reconstruct it. You need to, like, sort of think outside of those structures. And I myself am always doing unlearning, so I appreciate all of you for the wisdom you're passing on. And moving on to the next question, what tips do you have for centering BIPOC communities in the work you do, given, you know, everything that's going on and the fact that a lot of the things that go on, like, are against BIPOC communities, you know, and I'm saying, like, you know, how do we flip the script and really center these communities?
I mean, I could try to take a stab unless somebody want to ask us.
I'll start, Tiny, and then if you know.
Please.
So yeah, Nisha put it in the chat, make them uncomfortable. So some books that I love, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, Dr. Joy DeGruy. She has a class that she teaches online right now. Sign up, you will have your mind flipped. Do it. Medical Apartheid, New Jim Crow, Ta-Nehisi Coates, I didn't spell that right, Bell Hooks. Y'all check these folks out. Linda Tuhiwai Smith is absolutely decolonizing methodologies is something that I utilized in my dissertation and my work. And there's a whole book of African-centered methodologies, which I'm gonna try to remember the name of or look on my shelf for in just a second. But there's whole other paradigms, y'all. Look, listen. And I think the thing that I wanna say is, most importantly, root out your own anti-Blackness. And if you're Black, root out your own internalized anti-Blackness, and really shift those narratives, release those judgments, and get in touch with your own humanity. Listen to understand, not to reify your own belief system. And love, 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 love. Time, you know, go to Patricia, you know, go to me, you know, find ways that you love us, and you love us, and you know that we have people that we love that are in our communities, and you love us, we're all connected. And then we know that my children and your children and all of our children are connected, and my children are your children and your children are my children. And when you come from love in this work, then you can listen.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think this work has to be rooted in love, and it has to be rooted in meeting folks where they are. There are hundreds of years of colonization and hundreds of years of people feeling like they don't have any agency, and we are literally trying to give them agency. We're trying to give them the support that they need to thrive. And it's hard. It's hard to meet with families and children and have them not even understand what you're talking about, you know, with things that are just as simple as changing your diet, or, you know, not, you know, drinking milk, or, you know, different things that, you know, they might have underlined issues that are happening. And the advice that we might be giving is advice of someone who's privileged. You know, I have the privilege of knowing how to eat vegan. I have the privilege of having money to spend on that. And, you know, it does take a village, you know, Nisha, you're like right on it. Like, it takes a village to teach a village. And we are trying to teach our people to love themselves after so many hundreds of years of people telling us that we can't love ourselves. And that does, you know, it just exacerbates that because we're in COVID, but it's only showing us how much more work we need to do. It's giving us the opportunity to use the things that we that we now have, we have spaces to ask for more funding for, to prevent underlying issues that COVID can use to burn out the body. And so how do we do that in a way that is humbling, in a way that is open and honest, and really, like, it's really one-to-one. Everyone wants to have conversations about like this whole population and this whole population, and I get that, right? Like, the higher up you get, the more you have to worry about like how the data shows a particular population. For me, I consistently am one-to-one family, one-to-one intake, one-to-one, what does this particular family need to thrive, and how can I get them there? And I think that sometimes is something that we need to step into. How do we step into and really fall into supporting families where they are and how they want to be supported? And in that journey, get them to trust you. And how can that trust develop into better habits, better support systems, everything from like not watching TV all night and deciding to go for a walk or a bike ride with your family. I mean, those are like literal conversations that I've had, just to, and then feeling like, oh, okay, well, Patricia said to do this, let's try that, which is like so empowering to know that after, weeks and weeks of being with a family, like they will listen to you. And that's the power that we all have. We all have the power of community, the power of trust, the power of humanity. And all of those things translate to helping families step out of their own depression, their own feelings. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Patricia. You brought up a really important point about what is a good segue to the next question. I wanted to ask if I could get the panelists to each talk about how has advocacy changed for you during the pandemic? What tools have you had to gain that you might incorporate into your future use since we've been in COVID? Thank you.
I'm going to keep mine really simple. I've gotten braver to ask for money, and from systems, because, I literally did a little research about what Black organizations have, what Latino organizations have, what Native organizations have, what API organizations have, and what white organizations have. And it matches the disparities in the city. So, Native, first of all, organizations are very few and far between. And so they're really under and completely under supported. And Black organizations are, for Black folks, that the average annual income is 29,000. For Latinos, 57. For API, I think it's 80. For white folks, it's 125 or 125 median income. That's the direct disparity that we see in what agencies get. So I'm just trying to say, like, I'm going to ask for money, and I'm going to keep asking for money until my budget starts to look for like some of these other agencies, because I know I do good work. I know we need support, and I know that we make miracles out of nothing. And at the same time, we deserve the quality of life and the quality of programs. My programs are reparations to the community, and that's what we need, and that's what we deserve. So I'm not scared anymore to ask funders for money and to just say, hey, why don't you just put 50,000 on this and do a pilot? I just said it today to somebody at DPH. You just do a pilot, and I'm she's like, I'm like, I may or not get it, but I asked for it, right? $50,000 in an $11.5 billion budget in San Francisco is nothing. Ask for more money.
Rupa?
Yeah, so I kind of had, I've had a really crazy busy since March. I think every hospital doctor has. And with the uprising with George Floyd, and my own health with these wildfires. My lungs have been, I think, chronically injured since I was at Standing Rock, where we were all sprayed with some chemical. So there's many thousands of us who have chronically injured lungs now. And so at the same time when COVID broke out, I received a book deal for a book that I've been proposing to write with my friend, Raj Patel. And so literally the week of the lockdown, we had written this proposal, not even thinking of COVID, about how colonialism has impacted the health of the planet and the health of our bodies and the health of our societies. And it sold. And so then we had to write it in like 7 months. We had to write this book. And so at the beginning of the pandemic, I was trying to do everything, like respond to all the community need that when people were reaching out, respond to the uprisings, respond as much as I could, write as much as I could, op-eds. And I wasn't able to dig into this deeper, longer vision project with this book, which I think will have kind of be a piece of advocacy that I don't think I can imagine yet, because I haven't ever done anything like this. But I think it will help articulate some of these things for our friends, for future medical people. And so what I learned was to pace myself and to take care of myself, and to and just to pace myself. And so that is something that I'm still learning. I've turned in my first draft in 9 days, and then I have to hit the road running with all the projects that are waiting, because there's so much need in our communities.
Yeah, I would just add that, we've been creating more than ever because the need is more than ever. So we made a book called The Virus, COVID-19 and the Virus Called Poverty. It's a poor people's survival guide. And now we're doing the culmination of 22 years of work of functioning POLICE and CPS free in an occupied land. And I think what I'm learning more is to put the legacy work down that that us poor people create, live into, and walk every day, but don't get seen for the solutions that we already have. To work harder to unsell Mama Earth. And go back to the previous question, I would make an open invitation to everybody on this panel, and everyone watching, and all the folks in UCSF to consider coming to next session of People School, where us Black and Brown and Indigenous and poor people, houseless folks and elders and youth teach you what lived knowledge actually looks like, and how to operate differently inside the lies that we're all barraged with. But I think that I don't think that there's really been I don't feel like, oh, I've learned something or I've gotten a tip or better at anything. I think I've just gotten angrier and more desperate and more barraged with folk in struggle, because what is it called? Eviction moratoriums be damned. Last time I checked, poor people be getting eviction notices right and left. The scam lording is still scamming, and the lie of rent continues to harm and hurt poor people every day. And Black and Brown and Indigenous peoples in these communities are continually attacked. And now we've got, these fake politics called encampment policies, and basically more ways to get rid of us. So again, I think, if anything, for me, it's more recognizing the culmination of the lies of capitalism and white supremacy and colonization. But now, Mama Earth is under attack, and so are Earth peoples. And so I think, if anything, maybe what it made me remind myself to do is to go back to spirit, to convene with my ancestors, to clean the altar which I haven't done tonight, so I have to go do that, and take care of my mama and my son.
Thank you, Tiny. I think for me, I've definitely, 2 years ago, I got my dream job being a beacon director at James Denman Middle School. And as COVID hit, it kind of transformed the things that I thought I had to do and then the things that I needed to do. Watching, Excelsior Works start their food program and, getting calls from Denman families who were in the line by the coordinator, and then realizing that even though people weren't asking for it, they really needed it. They just didn't know who to ask. So I really turned into a, over the top, put everything, make sure everybody knows everything that, you can access, how you can access it, where you can access it. And every day there's new families. Every day I get, a call from a different principal in the neighborhood or another family that's like, I didn't even know you guys did this. Thank you so much. So it really changed, I think, for me, a sense of, what am I here for? I was here for supporting young people to get through middle school and do everything I can to do that. And now I'm here in the same capacity, but it's turned into, how do we get this family through COVID? How do we get this family through isolation? How do we support the whole neighborhood? So collaboration has been the golden ticket, being able to collaborate with different organizations that have families and that we can all be in community in supporting and helping and keeping people accountable. DPH has been, doing their best, and it's all about conversations, right? The more you talk, the more you discuss the problem, the more you can creatively and innovatively figure out the solution. And you got to keep talking about it, because as soon as you get frustrated with each other or you stop asking for money because you never get it, then it's just going to stop. So I definitely learned a lot about continuing to advocate, continuing to collaborate, continuing to use language as a superpower, and also continuing to remind people that, a plant-based diet is really the best way to work with COVID and to work with what this disease can really, how you can really fight it. And how you can really get ahead of it and use it as a tool to meet families. I mean, we serve, 250 to 300 folks at our testing site on Monday. And I keep telling everyone that it's just a doorway. Getting people there is how we meet people. And then we can help them get jobs, help them understand the system of distance learning, help them, whatever it is that they need. We've had folks that are houseless, helping them find resources. It is a doorway. It's not just about getting tested. It's about using it as a doorway to finding families, getting to know families, finding that trust. And then it keeps me accountable. I mean, I feel like I can't get burnt out because, I want people to know that I'm always going to be there. And then when I do feel like that, I always go back to the stories and the phone calls that I get and the way my mom, I've never seen my mom take a nap, which is probably horrible, but, she's always just been a running and just doing it. And I kind of feel the same way. So I'm really happy that my mindset didn't just sit in my job description and say, okay, I'm just going to do this because that's what I'm supposed to do. But it said, what do your families need? How can you figure something out? And then move forward and keep moving.
Hey, Patricia.
Thank you all so much for those words. We're almost out of time, but we may have time for one question from the audience if someone feels so inclined to ask a question of our amazing panelists this evening.
just to share, well, if anyone has, while we're waiting for any questions for the panel, from the audience, I'm posting some of the links that they have been posting in the chat onto Slack. So.
Did we tire y'all out? How are you doing? Are you breathing? Can we see your faces? What's up, y'all? You still out there? Hello, family. Hi. Good to see you, Ron. I see a thumbs up. What's up? Did we put you to sleep? What are you thinking about? Anybody got a question, a comment, a complaint, something? Hey, Anna. Nothing? Uh-oh. You're so deep in thought, huh? Definitely awake. Thanks, Anna. Are y'all just being good ivory tower people right now?
We'll be honest, we promise.
Say something.
Hi.
There she is.
It's really overwhelming. It's wonderful. There's so many words of wisdom. I'm just in awe. I feel the trauma. I guess I was just sharing with Mari privately for a minute. You know, my mom is a nurse midwife. It's just bringing up so much, just so much. And I'm a psychologist here at UCSF and feel a little bit comfortable saying this, but I just think you're all exposing your vulnerability. So thank you for that. And I think it's really going to be healing for a lot of people. I talked to a lot of the students, and this is exactly what we talk about, and how to get beyond it, and not beyond it, how to change it. And I know you were we're not allowed, we can't be tired, you know, vulnerable, but burnout is privilege, but it's also real too. It's real. And we all have kept going, and thank God we have, but maybe taking turns sometimes, you know? So anyway, I think that's at least why I was quiet. There's so much to say, and I don't feel articulate right now, but.
Thank you, Dr. Stanford. I just want to say one thing or two things. One, self-care is revolutionary. Audre Lorde taught us that.
Right.
And we must do it. Two, you know, I've been using this concept of a relay race lately. So somebody's got to set the pace, and we've been going hard since March, right? So, but I can't stay out in front the whole time. You know, somebody else has got to come up, pace me, and keep it going. So I hand off the baton. Somebody else comes in, and somebody else, even if they can only do a mile, at least I can go back. And Patricia, I do take a nap. I'm so sorry. Sometimes I do.
Oh, I take naps, girl. I take naps.
I'll be on that couch. I'll be at the office. I'll be like, "Ooh, I can't stay awake another minute," and then I'm out. You know, we use our emotional energy, and especially women of color, people of color, and healers. We run so hard on our energy because the emotional level of holding, the trauma, right? I could feel it when I came on with Asmara. And I was just sending her love and light and joy and lighting her up because it is too freaking fucking, excuse my language, deep. This shit is fucked up. And I'm sorry, y'all can record me and kick me out of UCSF. I love you anyway. But you know, this is fucked up. It's fucked up stuff. And we need to be able to say that. And we need to be able to yell and scream and cry. But in these white spaces, our Black and brown and indigenous bodies have not been safe to do that crying, to do that weeping, to do that wailing, to do that grieving, and to do that screaming. You know, our only way of protest is by being quiet and by being subservient in these spaces, or we're the loud, angry person who, you know, has not even gotten an invitation. So, I mean, I mean, not an invitation, well, maybe an invitation, but hasn't even gotten an apology. So I know I just took up a lot of time and I apologize, but I must say, we must do self-care. We must practice radical self-love, and we must not let the trauma live in our bodies. So y'all at home, I'm gonna be doing some tapping right now. Tap in, because it's all heavy. you know, tap out in your body, you know, just doing some tapping, doing some screaming, you know, shaking, you know, like a dog, shake your tail. It helps move that energy, moves that trauma, moves that stuff through your body. You can't hold it, and we shouldn't hold it because it's not ours to hold. So anyway, I'm gonna stop there.
No, girl, that's hella real. And I do want to empower all of you to, you know, find the women in your life that are there to support you in your self-care. Women, men, partners, children in your life that really, you know, help you find those moments of self-care, whatever it might be for you personally. I think that, you know, whether I didn't see my mom take a nap ever, I definitely saw her dancing while she cooked and having coffee with her friends, having moments with, you know, groups of women that she trusted and were a part of her life. My mom was only allowed to have very few, you know, friends in her life, but seeing that has always helped me see how to have my own self-care, whatever it means to me. To me, it means, you know, strong girlfriends that can run to the river and, you know, just chill, and also be able to talk about the frustrations that are happening and find solutions for them, and not stick in the problem, but move forward from it and really understand it. So yeah.
I just also wanted to add that Monique, what you were saying is so real also in the bodies and experiences of practitioners as we are on the inside, whether we're serving in the community, but then also experiencing those strategies of reestablishing these traumas that we're experiencing. And so I think that self-care is actually really super duper important. When I was talking about burning up versus burning out and the processes of inflammation, that tapping, actually meditation, music, singing, chanting, activating the vagus nerve, all of these things help cool inflammation in our bodies. Spending time with our friends, making food with our community, and sitting and eating together, all of these things increase anti-inflammatory hormones in our body, and that helps cool the inflammation in our bodies, and I think can help us last longer and do the work stronger. So I'm a big advocate for doing what we can to take care.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so very much for joining us. I know I personally learned so much from each of you tonight, and I'm definitely going to carry like some of the wisdom and unlearning that you have all taught me tonight into like my future work. And Amanda, do you want to say a few words before we transition off?
Thank you. I'm incredibly honored to be in this panel with you all, and thank you so much for your time. Really grateful. Thank you. Back to you, Nathan.
Awesome. So if folks want to stay on and join us for an open mic, Evolve and I are going to be co-hosting an open mic where, you know, bring whatever artistic talent or